Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Inside High School Hoops. Well, my main man Ani will be covering high school in the state of Texas today. Ani, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We both rocking the black polos today.
Yeah, we focused, man. We locked in. We locked in. Week 3 in high school hoops. Let's just open up. There's been some great performances by some Texas high school players at the collegiate level, which we'll touch on a few of those impressive performances. We'll go through. We'll have some guests in the second hour. We had some big time Thanksgiving events the last week that we'll talk about, not only in Houston but also in Dallas. So we'll have some special guests come on and talk about those. And then, we'll just cover the state. We'll start our show today. We'll start with East and West Texas. Then we'll go to Central Texas. And then we'll cover Greater Houston and South Texas. And then we'll go North Texas and Dallas. So, yeah, man, I know you went to a game last night. We'll talk about that one real quick. And then we'll get to East and West Texas. What did you think last night?
Last night was a really good game. It was Frisco Memorial versus Richardson. It was at Frisco Memorial. You have a good amount of Division I prospects there with Frisco Memorial. Drew Steffi, Joshua Thrower. You got Shannon Lowry. You got Isaiah Foster, who's come back from injury, who we spoke on in the previous week. Then you got Richardson, who haven't played in a while. With COVID, they were out for about a few weeks. But you got highly recruited Rylan Griffin and Cason Wallace, Cason Wallace jumped to the top 20 player in the country. So it was a really good game. Richardson got out early. I think it was 18-4 in the first, at the end of the first, and then Frisco got going. Drew Steffi was huge. He had 28 points overall. Always kind of gets labeled as a one-dimensional player, especially just as a catch-and-shoot guy, but really did a lot off the bounce. Was scoring, getting traffic. He was just tough. I mean, you know, he's been the best player for Frisco Memorial these past couple of games, and I think he's really taking the lead role as the guy. So, as a sophomore, seeing a kid like him just really kind of grow up and seeing him through the years grow up and taking that role early on has been really, really good. Richardson, Rylan Griffin, and they combined for 30 points overall. Gannon Parker, big fella, had probably 6 blocks. He was huge for them. Just as an interior presence, finish inside, either that was pick and dive or just, getting offensive rebounds and finishing. Gannon was huge for them. The thing that with Richardson is when you have a third scorer, that kind of relieves some of the pressure and just all the attention from like a Cason and Rylan, and that's huge. But Cason was big. Shot wasn't really falling at first, but really understood how to make plays even when the ball wasn't going in the hole. Either that's defending, just disrupting actions off the ball. If that's finishing inside, kind of get into that mid-post game. Rylan started really hitting shots from the perimeter. He makes tough shots. One thing about Ryan, he makes tough shots. But for Memorial, Drew Steffi was big. Isaiah Foster was solid. Shannon Lowry was just big inside as well, scoring inside. And I thought it was a really good game. It was a really good game. I felt like I went to the best game that day.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a game that you thought would be that competitive or if people thought would be that competitive. Obviously, Richardson was one of the best backcourts in the state of Texas with 2 highly rated guys. Talk a little bit about the Frisco Memorial side and just some of their players before we kind of move on to East and West Texas and then go to Central Texas.
Yeah, so Drew Steffi again was really big for them as far as just keeping them in that game, giving them a chance to win. Like I said, just attacking closeout, scoring with like floater game or finishing in traffic layups. He got to the free throw line about 10 times that game.
And most people
really
would probably put him.
What I really like.
Most people would probably put him in a box of Most people would probably put him in a box of only being a shooter, but it sounds like he showed a lot more than that in this particular matchup.
Right, and just more versatility as a shooter. Some just kind of want to label him just as a catch and shoot guy, where he can score on the move, run off ball screens, and just attack and just did more off the dribble. And then he's a very sound passer. I thought Shannon Lowry was big. He's a 2021 player. Very intriguing. I know with everything going on in the pandemic, it'll be interesting how his recruiting goes. But I mean, he's just so effective for Frisco Memorial. Just big, strong, physical forward that really gets into the paint and just like to mix it up car space inside. Like I said, his jumper is not bad. Mechanics are solid. It's just, he doesn't have confidence really taking those shots right now. But I would like to see how he can stretch the floor and kind of make it a little bit more impermanent. But his bread and butter against the paint finish, and he knows that when his team is a bucket, he knows where he needs to be. So yeah, those are two. Isaiah Foster, first game I saw him against McKinney was really aggressive. I know he's coming back from that knee injury, so you got to be, game out. He's got to kind of monitor minutes, and you're going to see a little bit up and down. He wasn't bad today, but just wasn't. Well, McKinney was just whoa. You can tell just when you log in a whole lot of minutes, like 30.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve coaches, share their stories, and spotlight their programs with our host, Brian Burton. A longtime successful college basketball coach, former championship collegiate point guard, husband, and father, Brian is now the Vice President of Rising Coaches Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance for men's basketball, an empowerment coach and founder of B3 Legacy Sports and the All Access Network. Sports broadcaster and host for All Access Coaches Corner and All Access Sports Media, Coach Burton is now using his successes, experiences, and connections to be a point guard in the sports industry at all levels, with a mission to help others to further their success. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
We are back. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulty.
All right, we good?
Yeah, we're ready to roll now. I think you were talking about Drew Steffi in particular from Frisco Memorial, who has shown more versatility as a scorer than just being a catch-and-shoot guy is what you were talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just as versatile as a shooter, run off ball screens and scoring and attacking off the bounce and finishing through contact. The fact that he drew a lot of fouls and was just finishing and got to the free throw line more than 10 times was big. I mean, that's where you see growth. Like I said, Shannon Lowry as well, 2021 kid who I said, with the pandemic, you don't know how his recruitment's going to go, but definitely a next level prospect. Really gets inside, physical, finishes through contact, knows how to carve space. And one big thing with him, his jumper's not, he's not comfortable taking jump shots right now, but his mechanics aren't bad. And I would like to see how well he can stretch the floor kind of going forward. But, one thing I do like, tight game, you need to win the game. He knows his bread and butter is to get inside.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about East and West Texas. We want to make sure we're showing love to the entire state. What did you see? What did you kind of follow? And what was kind of the news in the last week from that part of the state?
So big performance from Damian Collins in Atlanta, Texas. Atlanta High School's win versus Hallsville. 32 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists.
Damian Collins is a Kentucky signee.
Kentucky signee, yes, sir. 32 points, triple double. 32 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists, 4 blocks. Damian just always performed. I remember when he had goggles, he was just a little short kid trying to figure out. He wasn't short, but just real strong. He kind of looked out of place a little bit in 17. I saw him play without mistakes, but he's so hard at the time. He's so hard. He looks to block shots, and even when he doesn't know what to do, he knows he's going to go get everything. He knows how to block shots. So even now you see the skill to develop. His jumper is getting a little more consistent, especially when open. His feel as a passer. Not even just because he got 10 assists, you can just see it like when I saw him at Wooten Camp. I saw him something like as a passer, he has improved. He's starting to see the floor a little bit. Rebound the basketball, he's always been strong at, especially now. Rebound out of his area shots. That's what he's elite at. That's bringing in day one at Kentucky. So, big time game from Damian Collins. I don't think anyone has a stat line like that. Boy, that's really You know, and the biggest thing, he got the win. And then another one, so in Tyler, that's my hometown. The big game. So John Tyler, now they call Tyler. It used to be called RB. So that's a big time rivalry game in Tyler. And Tyler Legacy got to win 2 players to know 22, 21. One's Keon Irwin, 6'5", power forward, kind of skill face-up guy. Really was making impact. Had a couple people call me. He performed. They said he was a big impact. He made us on the paint. Kind of could stretch that a little bit. Sounds a really, really solid.
Sorry about that. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties this morning with his connection. We're going to have him log back in. In the meantime, we'll talk a little bit about some of the collegiate performances of some of the high school players that are from Texas. We'll start just with last night. Jalen Wilson, big-time performance for Kentucky, a Dallas product. Against Kentucky for Kansas, a Dallas product. Had an enormous double-double game. So shout out to him. Marcus Garrett's also on the same team in Kansas. He also struggling with a little bit of an injury, but also played well, helping them to get a big win against Kentucky. Ani was speaking about Damian Collins, who's actually going to Kentucky, who signed to go to Kentucky. So we look forward to seeing what he does there when he arrives on campus. They may have been able to use him last night in his rim protection. But we'll talk a little bit. I think we got Ani back. We'll talk a little bit about a few more players around the state that are just doing a great job at the next level. Hold on one second. Let's see if we can get our guy Ani back in here. Ani, you back?
Yeah, is this better? I think this is just
better. We had a little bit of connection difficulty. You were talking about Damian Collins. We were talking a little bit about I mentioned to our listeners about the game last night between Kentucky and Kansas. They probably could have used Damian a little bit for a little extra rim protection. Talked a little bit about Jalen Wilson and Marcus Garrett being Dallas products who are doing big things at Kansas. Jalen had a breakout game with a monster double-double. So let's go back to Damian Collins and kind of what you were talking about, and then also just kind of go into that East-West Texas.
Damian, like his game is really improved, and he's starting to figure out how to play, especially as his feel for it as a passer. Not only just because he got 10 assists last night, but just the fact that he's starting to see the floor better, and he's starting to make plays for others. He's always a good rebounder, and now he's starting to rebound out of his area. That's something I saw at the Wooten camp that I was impressed with. And he's an elite shot blocker. That's what he's bringing day one at Kentucky. So, Damian Collins is really improved. He's a worker, great kid, great family, and he's going to continue to put monstrous numbers for Atlanta. And one of his goals is to get deeper into the playoffs this year. I know with his senior year, so he's going to do whatever he can. And Damian's a kid at the end of the day, he wants to win.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we talk about other kids from the area, so like when we go East Texas, there was a rivalry game going on. Tyler Legacy, which was formerly it was called Robert E. Lee, and then you had John Tyler High School. They played each other. Well, they call it Tyler High School now. And that's a big time rivalry in Tyler. And Tyler Legacy won. Got a kid, 2021, Keon Irwin. He's a senior. He's another kid that I think is going to play at the next level. Don't know what level, but he's going to play college basketball. 6'5" forward that knows how to really stretch the floor, really strong with his back to the basket as well. I was getting calls last night about how he performed and, the big rivalry game like that. And, he was doing his thing, got a double-double. So Tion's a kid. I think coaches, especially I think in the D3, NAID, just around that area, need to take a real good look at. He's a kid that knows how to perform, knows how to win, and he got a big old body.
Awesome. Anything else out of East and West Texas before we kind of shift to Central Texas? I know we talked last week. We talked last week about one of the best players in the state being in West Texas, in El Paso, underclassmen. No, not sure if there's anything that is worth noting out that way or even in that Midland, Odessa, kind of West Texas, Amarillo area.
I haven't heard too much from like the Midland, El Paso area. I know KJ Lewis is still, being KJ Lewis, providing real strong box score stats and utilizing his athleticism and making big time plays. Out of Amarillo, Brendan Hausen and Cade Hornecker, and then DeMonte Woods out of, for Amarillo. That's a three-headed monster right there. Amarillo's going to be really, really hard to beat this year.
Yeah.
You talk about size, kids that play with motor, guard play. When you got all that mixed in, and then guys that just like playing with each other, been playing with each other for a long time. The guys, when you get into the playoffs, and then team chemistry is real big, and executing down the stretch. I think Amarillo is a team that you really, really got to be looking out for. You can talk about 3 Division I prospects on one team.
You said there are 3 Division I prospects. Talk a little bit about who those guys are and a little bit about what makes them great before we kind of shift to Central Texas.
So with Brendan Hausen, is my connection still good, first off?
Yeah, you're good. You're rocking right now. We're going to keep it that way. We need to keep it that way.
I'm rocking. I want to make sure I'm rocking. I want to make sure I'm rocking. Brendan Hausen, guard, about 6'4". It's like he's a guard, can really score basketball, has good skills. He's more the leading scorer for Amarillo. Just a kid that knows how to make plays for himself and others. He's in touch with his playmaking. You got Cade Hornecker, who's a big man, 2022, and Brendan's also 2022. Big fella who has some emerging skill set going in on the block. Shot doesn't even look bad. He has some stretch capabilities. And, he's starting to understand how to wall up. He's not the most explosive of athletes, but he just knows how to wall up and, make opposing guards really have to make tough shots around him. And DeMonte Woods, who's really, really making strides. He's grew a little bit. I remember him about 6'4", now he's about 6'7". Athletic forward, plays hard, makes plays off motor and his athleticism. He just has an engine that doesn't stop. And he's the kid that's really turned himself into a Division I prospect. And all 2022, it's all juniors. So you got this year, you got another year with. So this is going to be a really, really, really interesting team to watch going forward for the next year or two.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of challenge with the Wi-Fi again. We're going to shift to Central Texas and talk hoops there. I know there was a big-time matchup between Duncanville and Austin Westlake. So that represents the Central Texas from Austin. Anything else out of San Antonio or Austin? And then let's talk a little bit about that game in particular. I know Duncanville is one of the better teams in the state. Westlake has been definitely a high-level program and one of the best ones in the state as well in recent years. Coach Cicero is as good as anybody at coaching basketball, but even just a great man. So look forward to hearing a little bit about that matchup and what you thought there. And then also we'll talk more about San Antonio, Austin.
So when we go, I do want to highlight that Duncanville Westlake game. My guy Timothy was there. Kind of stat line there. Duncanville ended up winning, but it was a pretty good game. KJ Adams, Kansas signee, provided 34 points that game. Just big, strong, physical forward, athletic, tough. I mean, you don't want to go against KJ Adams, especially in a high school game. I mean, just you don't really have someone that just matches either it's his size or athleticism or strength. So he had a really strong showing. Ian Mawat, 2022 kid, really, I think he's a 22 or 21. Really can shoot the basketball, the size. He had 13 points. And for Duncanville, I mean, it's just so tough to beat because it doesn't matter who the leading scorer is. And I think in David Peavy, who's the head coach, made a point in an interview that says, each game we have 5 guys in double figures. And you have Zerk also 22. That's a SMU signing. Juan Rayner with 19 and Damon Nicholas with 15. Juan Rayner signed to Alabama State. Damon Nicholas signed to Sam Houston. They're just so hard to beat, just defensively. It's physical. They get after. They got something to score the ball. Even with CJ Ford, Ronald Holland. You just got Duncanville just so hard to beat because someone could be the leading scorer. It could be Juan Rayner with 30. It could be Ronald Holland like you saw in the Hoop Fest talk about later, who could give you 15 and 15. David Nicholas could give you 20. Warner, Zerg can give you a 15 and 10 assist night. CJ Ford, I mean, he's been going off. And then you come off, and then you got Davian Sight, who can perform. So you got so many guys can build that can provide stable offense and then defensively really build their ass off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else out of San Antonio, Austin, Central Texas area? We know that was a big time game and it was a competitive matchup between two great teams and two great coaches. Anything else that happened out that way in Central Texas that you'd like to touch on? And if there's anything else also from the Austin Westlake side that you want to touch on. I know we talked a lot about Duncanville and you talked about KJ Adams.
Yeah, like he and Milwaukee kid that I really do like. I got a chance to see him a little bit, can really shoot with his size. They got a kid, Iggy Han, who I really like, about 6'7", kind of more your stretch four. Really skilled, got size, got solid length to him, can really just make plays on the offensive and defensive side of the basketball. KJ Adams again. I mean, you say what you want about him. At the end of the day, it's just he's a mismatch. He's a mismatch. Like I said, especially in the high school game, you're not going to match every his outlier strength, outlier athleticism, and good size. So I think he just knows how to be productive too. KJ is a kid that's game is starting to kind of expand some too, but it's kind of like what I talked about with Shannon Lowry at Frisco Memorial. Their bread and butter, when they know they need to get a bucket, they know where they're going to get their bucket. It's not one of those, I got to show you I can hit this, I can shoot these jumpers and this, that, and the third. He knows, okay, hey, we need a bucket. I know I can hit these, but I'm going to go inside and you ain't going to stop me, So that's one thing I really do like about KJ Adams. And one thing what I like about guys like that, they're not trying to show you that they're gifted. They know they're gifted, So they're just going to, hey, I'm just going to make basketball plays and win.
Yeah, we mentioned a couple guys from Texas that are already having success at Kansas. It looks like he's going to fit right into that mold as he goes to that level. Let's talk more about Central Texas and what else you saw.
So, with Connor and Judson, they played. I think last night, a few nights ago. So Connor ended up winning. That's a really good game. It was 73-70. They beat Judson. Adam, I'm watched the last name, but I'm trying. Adam Benihane, 2022 had 2021 he had 22 points and 10 rebounds. It was a big game for him. He's came to our camps, our TBB camps in the past. Just you look at him, you're like, he's a solo player, but like I said, his stat line, he'll give you about 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and he's the reason his team wins games. I mean, his teams win camp games just because he just performs and he just knows how to play and knows when to take a charge or when to when his team really needs to get this rebound. He just has a real good feel and just sense of what needs to be done on a possession by possession basis. So I really do like Adam. I think he's just a real solid basketball player. Isaac Orozco, he also provided 22 points for Connor, and I like Isaac. Has a good looking jumper. Can get inside, can attack the paint, finish. Then you also got Anaris Brandon, who also performed. He had 18 points. Another kid I like. He just gets stuff done. I got to see him some in Austin when I went down there. There was a tournament, the Urban ASAC tournament. I got to see him a little bit. So that game, you talk about Adam Benihana, Isaac Orozco, Isaiah Washington, who knocked down 5 threes. Anaris Brandon, Jalen Munoz, you had a good crop of players in that game. And Judson and Connor, I mean, that's just a dogfight. That's going to be a dogfight anytime they play.
Yeah, we'll make a shift here pretty soon to talk more about some of the collegiate performances. We do have a guest, Glenn Smith from DFW Hoops, is coming on to talk about his big event for Thanksgiving. And then we have Jeffrey Day coming on as well, representing RCS Sports to talk about their event that Ani was a part of as well, covering in the Thanksgiving of the end of last week. So we'll talk about those with our guest in the next hour. For the next 20 minutes or so, we'll kind of finish up Central Texas, and then we'll spend some time talking about some of the collegiate performances at the next level. And then we'll also talk about some of the guys in Texas and just who signed where, and just kind of give some quick updates on recruitment as well. So, Ani, you want to kind of finish up the Central Texas, and then we'll move to the college ranks.
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to 2021 Jonas Karloff from South San Antonio. That a convincing win against Harlandale. Jonas had, I think, 22 points, a couple assists, 7 rebounds. You know, he's a 2021. He's a high academic student. He has a 3.8 GPA. Jonas, a lefty that can that has a real smooth looking jump shot, can kind of get into his mid range game and get comfortable. We want to give a shout out to Jonas. I know South San Antonio doesn't really get much love, but he is a kid that I have been monitoring a little bit, especially in the past 2 to 3 months. And he's just a lefty with good size that, you know, can really get his own shot. And I didn't know he had such a high GPA, and I found that out I went through Twitter. Then my guy Tim Littlefield also told me he's a really high academic kid. He's a kid that definitely is going to play at the next level. I want to give a shout out to him. And the leading South San Antonio squad to a real big win.
Yeah, we had Antonio from Alamo City Hoops on last week, who did a great job covering and talking about San Antonio hoops. So, and we had John Smith on before that. We won't have a representative from the Central Texas area today, but you know, obviously Ani covers the whole state, so we're always able to get the inside scoop there. So, yeah, we'll transition a little bit. We'll take a quick break, come back and talk about college hoops and some of the performances from some of the guys from Texas, and then we'll also talk a little bit even before that about just give a recap of some of the signees from all the cities in Texas. We won't be able to go through all of them, but there's usually about an average of anywhere from 65 to sometimes 90 kids in the high school ranks to sign at the Division I level. So depending on the year, there's a lot of high school talent, and that's not even to mention the junior college talent. So we do have a junior college show that we cover as well on podcast and on live stream called JUCO Hoops Insider. We do that with JUCO Advocate, where we cover JUCO as well. And there's been a ton of talent that comes out of Texas in both streams, from high school and junior college. So we'll come back from a quick break, talk about some signees, and we'll also talk about some guys performing at the next level. And then at the 11 o'clock hour Central Time, we'll bring on our guests. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career.
Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Okay, we are back. Look forward to kind of getting into another part of the show real quick, a quick 20-minute segment where we'll cover college and some of the signees. So we'll go signees first. We've mentioned KJ Adams as a Kansas signee. We've mentioned Damian Collins as a Kentucky signee. Both teams played last night in a hard-fought game. We know some of the best players in the country are coming out of the state of Texas and going all kinds of places. We'll talk later about a guy, Drew Timme, who plays at Gonzaga, who's the #1 team in the country. So you always find Texas players at all levels doing big things. So let's talk about some of the signees. Ani, just kind of go through some of the guys you may want to mention from any part of Texas that have signed at any level, whether it's Division II, whether it's Division I. I know there's, again, we talked about the numbers. There's over 100 kids a year signing to play at the next level, whether it's junior college, Division II, Division III, or Division I. So let's just talk about a handful of them. We'll kind of go whatever order you want to go in, and then we'll shift to talking about college.
So, you got more. You got a lot. Like you said, it's about 65 to 80 Division I signees, and then after the junior college, after they do the years at junior college, then that's where you get roundabout to the 80. When you talk about, from the top, you have Harrison Ingram, who's going to Stanford, Manny Obaseki, who's going to Texas A&M. You go from like Juan Reyna, who signed to Alabama State. Jalen Tyson, who's his birthday. Shout out to Jalen Tyson, happy birthday. He's going to Texas Tech. You got KJ Adams, who's going to Kansas. Damian Collins, who's going to Kentucky. You got Kriston Morgan, who's going to UNT. You got Elijah Huey out of Lancaster, who's going to Western Kentucky. Wade Taylor, who's going to Texas A&M. So you got guys that are, committing. You got a handful of guys. I'm looking at the list right now. I mean, you talk about, I still count the guys that are out of the state, but, still reside here, like Langston Love, who's going to Baylor. Zurich Phelps is going to SMU. Zachary Clements, who's going to Kansas as well. Jarrell Colbert, who's going to LSU. Keon Edwards is going to DePaul. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You got guys that still haven't signed, like Jamel Cofer, who I would expect a commitment in the near future out of Universal Academy. You got Sir Isaac Heron, Damari Williams, who's out of Dream City. His family, they're still based out of Houston. He committed to Arizona.
Now, are these the unsigned guys you're talking about now, Ani?
No. I'm saying Damari Williams, he signed to Arizona State. Just kind of going through the list, just talking about guys. Joseph Van Zant going to Liberty. Javier Francis, who's going to Houston. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I probably named about 20 guys already in that 21 class, and you just got so many guys that haven't even committed yet that are still available that are going to go Division I.
Yeah, let's talk about that next. We won't go that right this second. Let's talk about a few guys that may not have signed at the highest level Division I. I know you mentioned a couple of Duncanville guys. One maybe going to a SWAC or MEAC school this signed. One is also going to a Southland school. Damian Nichols, I believe, is going to Sam Houston State. Talk a little bit about some of those guys, maybe even D2, low major, mid major. Talk about some of those guys on that list. And then lastly, we'll kind of go the best unsigned seniors.
So you got Gavino Ramos, who signed at St. Ed's, which I thought was a fantastic signing for him. That St. Ed's got a really, really good basketball player. He's going to be good for them for his whole tenure there, for his whole 4 years. You got guys like Ian Mata, who's at Allen, who signed to Cornell. I mean, that's a big time opportunity for him on the academic and athletic perspective. You got guys like Chris Felix, who signed the Air Force out of Westbury Christian. Known Chris for a long time, and just I think Air Force got a good player, and I think it's a kid that goes from the academy into the team, and then he's a productive player. You got Prairie View signed a couple guys from Brian Miles to Legacy, and then PJ Neal. Both from Legacy School of Sports Science. So you got guys like, the Ian Matas, the Brian Miles, PJ Neals, Gavino Ramos, who's at St. Ed's. Like I said, I talked about Kriston Morgan that's going to UNT, Elijah Huey, who's going to Western Kentucky. You got Reedus Betritas, who's also going to Air Force out of Oak Ridge. So you got guys like Sean Walker, who committed to McNeese, I believe. So, then you got the other kid from Legacy, Jonathan Massey, John, who I got to see, when he was like probably 10 years old. Now you kind of get to see him, he committed to McNeese as well. So you got those kids that are assigned to those D2s, those low to mids, and they're going to be, all these kids I named are going to niche really, really sound to potentially really strong careers there. I think they made the right decision for themselves. They didn't try to pick the highest level. A kid like Gavino Ramos could have gone to a Division I school. right?
Yep.
But he went to St. Ed's, who's a fantastic Division II school, and he's going to have a strong career there. These kids just pick the appropriate level for them where they can thrive. It's not all about, and applaud to the adults in their life that want that told them go to a place where you can thrive instead of going to the highest level. I do think sometimes people can kind of forget that. For kids, they just want to go to what looks the sexiest. But let's go somewhere where you're going to thrive and play and get a good quality education. And that's how you use basketball as a vehicle.
Right. No, that's what it's all about. Making that decision and not worrying about the level and just going where you can fit in and you can shine the most and where they've done the best job recruiting you. So talk a little bit about the unsigned guys. We know every year there are guys late that end up really blowing up, whether it's a Zaire Smith, who's now in the NBA, who I had the pleasure of recruiting to Lamar. He came on a visit to Lamar early in Little Rock, and then late he ends up visiting Texas Tech, Texas, and I believe Arkansas. So he really blew up. There's plenty of stories. C.J. Massenberg is a guy who is one of the all-time – I think he's the all-time leading scorer at Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Is basically an NBA guy now at this point as well. He's a guy who signed in the late period out of SOC, who has had a tremendous college career. So there's always those late signees, and I know I'm just mentioning a couple, but there's always those late signees of guys who end up, really, really blowing up and having tremendous college careers. So who would be some of the guys to kind of watch out for on your late signees list?
So Jamel Cofer out of Universal Academy. Universal Academy actually has two, just right off the top of my head. With Jamel Cofer, lefty guard, 2021, who's also been receiving some higher end Division I interest. He's a kid that I could see commit in the next month or so. But he's to me, he's if he's not the top unsigned senior in the class, I mean, you can't name three more better. Then you got Sir Isaac Aron, another kid that's receiving higher end Division I interest at a Legacy School of Sports Science, 6'7", 6'8", forward, skilled. He's a kid that is going to sign late, and he's going to go to a quality school. Sharpstown. I talked about Josh Farmer. I think I talked about Josh Farmer in the past two shows. He's a kid about 6'8", long, athletic. The physical profile's there. Not like the strongest, built kid, but I mean, you can add weight. It's not going to be an issue. But he's a kid that's just very, very talented. I mean, he just has an outstanding ceiling. He's athletic. He has some skill. He can put the ball on the floor and really make plays for himself. And he's just a kid, like I said, if he figures it out, I mean, 4 or 5 years from now, we're really talking about something. You know what I mean? Maybe even shorter than that. So he's a kid that I'm just always going to be intrigued by. And he's a kid that's always going to have chances, to really show himself. Because, you leave games and you're like, man, this kid can really has a real legit chance. Xavier Rhodes, we kind of forget about him from Skyline, big fella.
Yeah.
You talk about a kid that's just talented. I mean, just really, really, really talented. Skill with his size. Lefty, can stretch the floor, can finish inside. He's another kid. I mean, he's going to go to a high major institution. I mean, I would be surprised if he doesn't. But he's a kid that just is really, really talented and really, really, really skilled. We didn't get to see him in the summer. Obviously, coaches still couldn't even really come out. But that's a kid I have high on my list that I need to go back and see.
Right.
Xavier Rhodes out of Skyline. And then you got –
just kind of following up on a couple of those guys you just mentioned. So Xavier out of Skyline, home of where Marcus Garrett played as well, who was really kind of a guy who I don't want to say under the radar, but he wasn't a major name his entire high school career necessarily either. He's a guy that Kansas evaluated, did a good job, and he kind of was a high-profile guy more toward the end of his career, but didn't play on a big shoe circuit team, wasn't a guy who was continued to be celebrated and had a bunch of mixtapes that were going around. He was a guy that just kind of was, at the high major level, probably an under-the-radar kind of guy. And then you mentioned Farmer. I was fortunate to work with and coach him at the John Lucas camp probably about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now. Long, athletic. I mean, you could see the upside even when he was a young fella, and I know he's producing now. I know he's had some offers along the way at some pretty good level, mid plus, and possibly even high major. And so he's one of those guys that, and you never know when a guy's going to when the light bulb clicks and when it comes together. And, in
Right.
the late signing period, it'll be different this year. It'll be a lot trickier this year because of players at the Division I level and the junior college level getting their year back. The late signees, it will be a little trickier than normal, but I still think there's going to be a place for guys that have talent and an upside for programs to kind of invest in and say, you know what, we're going to take a look at this guy, or we're going to, make a move on this particular guy. So I say all that to say I wanted to chime in real quick. I know you got a few more names of some unsigned seniors that you want to mention before we have our first guest come on.
Yeah, so also at University, you got big fella Shakira Odunewu, about 6'10". I know A&M offered early on. He's another unsigned senior. He's one of the best available bigs that you have out there. Strong, big body, post, can kind of stretch out a little bit, hit shots from 12 to 15 feet out, but just a force inside, just, use his broad shoulders and elbows and just car space and dunk on you. And, Shaq had a really strong summer, has having a good school season as well. So he's another kid that, I remember when he first kind of came in from Rhode Island and, just kind of, out of shape, kind of walk and chew bubble gum really. And Terrell Woody's done a really good job. That's the head coach of Universal Academy. He's done a really good job of developing him and making him into a Division I prospect. So, he's won. Tyrone Baker came from Florida. Is playing at Hightower right now with Bryce Griggs, who's a 2022 player. Another big fellow that is receiving a lot of high-end interest. I know he released a top 5 recently. So I think West Kentucky Davidson, a few other high majors from there. I think Georgia was in there. He's another kid who's available right now that really talented. Skill for a kid his size. When he goes on these stretches, like these 2 to 3 minute stretches where you're just like, wow, this kid can really play. This kid got a chance. Tyrone Baker out of Florida. And when I talked to the kid, he just loved being in Texas. So he was like, man, I'm just excited being here, excited to play. And he's a great kid. And he's one of the funnest interviews that I've had this school season. Just honest, and he's just funny and a little goofy. So definitely Tyrone Baker's an available prospect that signed late, that's going to be really, really talented and has a chance to really blow up if he ever really figures it out.
Yeah, for sure. We always love to cover those kind of under the radar guys. Is there anyone else that's kind of maybe under the radar, maybe hasn't signed yet, is kind of playing some good basketball, maybe not somebody who's talked about as much? Obviously, you're in the film. You see a ton of guys, and you watch a bunch of film. You stay in the lab. You stay invested in figuring out who's next. Is there anyone else that's kind of under the radar that people don't really talk about, people aren't really thinking about, that kind of fits in that mold?
Yeah, absolutely. So Noah Robledo out of Leander doesn't really get talked about much, but a kid with his size at the wing position, about 6'7", that can score the basketball, really just shoot it well. And got to really get a good look at him. Marcus Sloan ran a camp in Dallas a few months ago prior to the school season. Now I got to really sit down and look at Noah. Really strong. They got to see him again in Austin a few other times. Just a skilled wing with legit size that I feel like is a little under the radar. I feel like he is under the radar, and I feel that his talent, his skill, and size, that translates. It does translate. And he's a kid that's going to sign late, and I think he's going to be a situation. He's going to go to a school where he's going to really thrive. But Noah Robledo out of Orlando, and I've been hearing a lot of good things just with his play. And I like Noah. You how can you not like a 6'7" wing that can shoot the basketball? At the end of the day, those guys are always going to catch your eye.
That's usually a good sign for success. 6'7" wing who can shoot it. So speaking of 6'7" wings, let's talk collegiate now. We talked about some signees. We talked about some unsigned guys. Let's get to the college level and talk about some of the guys that are performing at a high level. I sent a tweet out last night recognizing Von Zell and his program. Now Texas Assault, previously Marcus Smart. So with his program, he had some guys play really well last night. We mentioned Jalen Wilson, Isaac Likely, who I was fortunate to be a part of recruiting and signing at Fresno State, who then we took the job at UTEP. He opened up his recruitment and signed at Oklahoma State and has been basically a franchise-level player impact player since he's gotten there. He's also won a gold medal with his new teammate Cade Cunningham. They had a great win last night playing against Marquette, which was again another great win. And they're starting the year 3-0. I believe they deserve every opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. We're praying that they get that appeal. We're supporting you, Oklahoma State basketball team and Coach Boynton, one of the best guys out there. They deserve to play in that tournament. They had nothing to do with the reason why they won't be able to play in the tournament as of now. So we hope that gets changed. So Isaac likely played well as well. Cade Cunningham, one of the best players in the country. Oklahoma State has a plethora of Dallas guys to talk about. So let's talk Oklahoma State first. We'll talk Michigan State. Julius Marble also played really well. And we'll kind of just bounce around with some different guys who have performed at a high level so far to start the year.
So with Oklahoma State, we can start at the top with Cade Cunningham, who's projected #1 overall draft pick. And he's been playing like it. he's been playing like it, scoring the basketball, shooting it. Watching him against Marquette, he was making some tough shots, but it just looked real fluid and natural. Obviously, just his vision. He didn't rack up a whole lot of assists, but he was just making the pass before, like the hockey assist, and just making reads where he just kind of get, his guys going. I mean, just Cade just feel and IQ and just playmaking just tremendous. I mean, you just see a kid with that size, and when he has the ball, everybody's calm and everyone knows that the ball is going to move or a good play is about to happen. I mean, when you have him, leading your troops, I mean, you're always in good shape. Absolutely. So Isaac likely, again, just, defensively was just like tipping passes, being aggressive, strong on-ball defender, finishing inside. He's another kid that has a good feel as a passer and just makes plays off his motor. Isaac's just been very strong. Like I say, he's been a franchise player for them, and he's just been fantastic. I like Isaac just brings so much, and sometimes you look at his stat line, it's not great, but when you're looking at how he is just as a defender and just a rebounder and just a guy that just knows when to get his points and how to get his points, Isaac's been really strong. Another kid, even though he's not a Texas kid, I do feel I had a strong game, was Rondell Walker. Kind of came in from Oklahoma. I thought Rondell was good. I thought Rondell was good, was finishing, was running the floor. He was playing really hard. One thing I do like about Rondell, he really takes winning. He takes losing personal. He always has been, even when he was in high school. So I want to give a shout out to Rondell Walker there. Avery Anderson's been solid. Kid was at Northwest, just been very solid. I think there's so much. I think there's more that he'll be able to bring on as time goes on. But I do like how his progression how he's progressed and how he's really just been performing for Oklahoma State. Yeah,
and you got Chris Harris, backcourt teammate with Tyrese Maxey over at South Garland, who's another Texas guy. Yeah. You got Montrell Pena, who's an Arlington guy, who's a freshman, who's also on the team, and just kind of touching just some of the Dallas guys. They have so many. They've done such a great job in the Metroplex and in Texas that we'd be remiss not to at least
absolutely. Two talented players. Chris provides spacing. He's really got really has. I know he hurt his knee one game. I think it was the second game. But no, Chris is someone that really provides space and scoring, and he's really kind of gone to the flow of things. And the Montrell he's a big time talent as far as just has a lot of ability. And I think eventually, he's a kid that once he can, if he's a kid that figures it out, he can be really good. Be really, really good for him.
Absolutely. So what kind of shit? We talked Julius Marble. They got a big win. He got a monster dunk. Even got a quote on SportsCenter where he got interviewed.
Talking about Duke.
Talking about his love for Duke, speaking sarcastically. But he's playing at a high level. Another guy, late signee. We talk about late signees. He's a guy who signed late, who wasn't a guy who was really highly celebrated even on that team he was on with Marcus Smart. And he's become not only a good player, but one of the better players on Michigan State's team. So impressive to see what he's done. Again, shout out to Coach Vaughn and his program out there in the DFW, Vonzel. And then he had one more big performer that I recognized, at least in Grant Sherfield. Grant Sherfield hit the game-winner shot against Nebraska. He plays for Nevada. He's a transfer from Wichita State. Was a product in Dallas, was at Mansfield Summit, and then ended up going to Kansas for the end of his high school career, but grew up in Texas, played grassroots in Texas as far as the high school scene. So definitely got to give shout out to him. He's playing really well for Nevada. So I want to give shout out to him. There's a few other guys. Houston, Texas product, Xavier Wheeler, double out of the gate. Was really electric and dynamic. If you haven't watched Georgia's point guard, he is a must-watch. Get your popcorn ready, as they say. Flashy, dynamic, but not flashy in the sense of overdoing things. He's a true point guard. He's a throwback point guard. I think his first offer back when he was in 7th grade was from an assistant at Lamar. I just happened to see something in him, but you could tell his dad knows the game. Teddy Wheeler at a high level, one of the best basketball minds in the state, and what he does and how he trains, and basketball university. He had Quentin Grimes as well, who's playing at a high level for Houston. Trayvon Mark coming out of the gate, rookie of the week in the American Conference, playing at a really high level, scoring in bunches, getting to the free throw line at a super high clip. He had a great performance against Texas Tech, although it wasn't a wowing performance before freshman on that stage in his second or third game in his career. He's played at a really high level. He's been impressive. Sasser, I believe, was player of the week in the American, who's another DFW product. Was fortunate to recruit him a little bit when I was at UTEP. Knew that Houston was going to be hard to beat. Anytime you're going against Houston, you kind of know, but got to know him as a young man, and what a great pedigree. His family comes from a basketball family. If you know anything about basketball in Texas, you know the Sasser name means a lot in the history of basketball in DFW and at SMU. Micah Peavy also playing really well for Texas Tech, starting out of the gate, just kind of going down the line. Marcus Williams, another freshman, has a good chance. We have a Mountain West show that we have on Tuesdays, every other Tuesday on All Access Sports Media, and we talk about who could be the freshman of the year. And Marcus Williams is my choice, and also my co-host choice for freshman of the year for Wyoming. Just a tremendous talent, great feel for the game, great vision, ability to score. He is going to play a big role. He's already played a big role in Wyoming's 2-0 start, and he will be a big factor to watch. And then just a few others. Zach Nuttall for Sam Houston State, arguably one of the best players in the conference. Of course, those guys as a staff do such a great job, not only leading their team to win, but also recruiting the state. Close friend of mine, Chuck Taylor, was a huge part of signing Zach Nuttall there. Played for Texas Pro and Marlon Lowe. And Chuck did just a great job kind of sticking in there with Zach and making sure that he ended up being a Sam Houston Bearcat. And he is arguably the best player in that conference. I think he had a 30-plus point game coming out of the gate, maybe in a 35-point game coming out of the gate. And then just a few other notables, two La Tech guys. Talvin Hester does a great job along with the assistant coach at La Tech, along with Eric Conco, doing a great job recruiting Texas, and they always have done a great job recruiting Texas. But Zach Lofton at La Tech and Jacoby Pemberton, a Lancaster product, and then a Beaumont Golden Triangle product that are both playing at a really high level. Jacoby averaging a double-double early and had some great performances even against UTA. And then Kenny Lofton, Kenny Lofton played really well. And I think broke a record for freshmen or second to Karl Malone and some of the things that he's done there early on. And then LJ Cryer for Baylor. I always got to give the Baylor Bears their shout out. They've done as good of a job in Texas as anyone over the past few years, or past decade, really, since Drew's been there. And LJ just a terrific scorer and gives them another scoring punch on a team that is already one of the best in the country. So I know I just kind of rattled off a bunch. We'll let Ani kind of have his turn at it, and then we'll bring in our special guest.
Yeah, for sure. Going to Houston, talking about Xavier Wheeler at Georgia, we had a 12-point, 12-assist outing. Xavier's just a kid that gets to wherever spot he wants to on the floor. He's just a lead at that, and just how he is defensively and just making plays for others. Xavier's just a joy to watch. He's been a joy to watch since middle school. So really excited to see him lead, like you talked about with LJ Cryer at Baylor, just really scoring the basketball with efficiency too. LJ, and that's how he was in high school. I mean, he was a kid that would get a 30-point game, and he would take like 12 shots, but he would just get to the free throw line. He was just really scoring the back. I mean, he would probably be like 10 for 12 and get to the free throw line. So he's a kid that, his efficiency has translated over to the collegiate level. Kenneth Lofton at La Tech, his 20 points tied Paul Millsap for most points of freshman in 2 games. Kenneth is just a handful in the paint. He chose the right school, right school, and he's just going to be a beast in the paint. And I really like Kenneth. Kenneth was somebody got to see when they did the NCAA camp. I got to get a really good feel for him in the NCAA camp about not this summer, but the past summer. So I really enjoy how he's playing. Micah Peavy. So I got to watch that Texas Tech and U of H game. And then you talk about Jamal Mark, who was making plays that were just making next level plays, and especially with his size. Alan Branch made a comparison to Katino Mobley. That's a throwback right there. He used to play for the Rockets with Steve Francis. I like that. Lefty that can really score the basketball. Micah Peavy, like I said, just briefly mentioned earlier, is really becoming one of the main contributors for Texas Tech, scoring the basketball, defending, rebounding, just playing really hard. And that's stuff that he's been doing. Was doing in high school. Again, you see a kid like that translating and starting right away and being an immediate contributor, and providing big minutes. So guys like them are really performing. Quentin Grimes, who I know you mentioned earlier, Brian, he's a kid that just, scores the basketball. He hit 1 3, and I know like he was going to start getting going offensively and start, then he scored a couple more times. So Quentin Grimes is a kid that can really score and be an engine when needed. And with that U of A squad, you got Marcus Sasser, who got hot early, was making shots, just a dog. You can tell he's a kid that is ready. Like big games, he's going to come ready to play. I don't think there's a big game, even when it came to the club season in high school or even during the school season and even out on the collegiate level. Big games, he's going to come ready.
Right.
He's going to come ready. So that's why I do love about Sasser. And you just got to know.
He played at a high level every time he comes back to Dallas, too. That's one thing.
Yeah, every time.
The game was in the Metroplex. He had maybe his best game of his freshman year against SMU last year in Moody Coliseum, and then played so well against Texas Tech. You can just tell he's in a different groove, man. He's a guy that loves to be in the gym. Again, has that pedigree. Never had a flashy game, even in high school. Wasn't a guy that was super celebrated in the Metroplex or even in his recruitment. He didn't have a ton of people just kind of salivating over him, and he's just one of those guys because of his toughness and his translatability as far as his game. It was a very mature game, very efficient game, and then just the way he shoots the basketball and can compete on the defensive end. I mean, you can't say enough about that. I mean, Houston was so impressive in how they defended as a team, but it definitely starts with the point guard. So,
and let's touch on SMU real quick. Ron Hunt's been playing really well.
Yeah.
You
mentioned Kendrick Davis. You got to mention some of the Texas boys. We'll end with SMU. We'll let you talk about that, and then we'll bring on our guests.
Yeah, so you got Ron Hunt, who's really been performing. Athletic forward that starting to hit shots, starting to hit shots, but just his athleticism and length. I mean, he just looks. I mean, his physical profile is fantastic. And then you got Kendrick Davis, who's just been the guard and just scoring the basketball, making plays for others. Kendrick just such a tough kid out of Sam Houston High School. I mean, he's a winner. He's a winner, and he's leading SMU to wins. And it just translates to that, and you got other kids at SMU like Charles Smith, and then I know Jamar Young's there. I mean, SMU, I can see they're going to make a real run at it at the American Conference this year. They're talented.
Yeah,
they're talented, and they brought everybody back. Yeah,
no doubt. They brought everybody back, and they add another Texas guy in the Cal transfer guard. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I don't know why. Another guy recruited.
The guard. Sorry, man.
We're gonna come back to that. I owe you one. But we got a special guest who is not enough time to intro him, to be honest. Glenn Smith is one of the guys in Texas who has done just an incredible job of finding a niche and figuring out how to bring even more national spotlight to the state of Texas and the talent in the DFW. He has brought some of the best players around the world. Definitely within our country in the high school level. Every year he figures out who is the best out there. I'm bringing them to Texas to put them against the best. I want people to know Texas has some of the best, and we're going to bring you guys to Texas and put on not only just an event, but put on a show. So he can talk a lot about that. Broke some enormous records last year with his event. This year was a little bit different because of COVID. But again, he's just done an unbelievable job. You'll love to hear the list of names of people that have been at the event, how the event started, how he kind of got into the scene and he's gotten in. And we'll just bring in our special guest now. G, what's up, my man? How you doing?
What's going on, fellas? How we doing?
We're doing good, man. Good to have you on this morning, man. I won't take too much time because I want to let you have as much as you need. Let's talk about your event last week. Tell us a little bit about how you even got in the event business. How did you get connected the way you did? How have you kind of come up with these enormous events and this national spotlight for the state of Texas?
So I got into the business a while. Well, let me rewind about how the foundation was set for me to get into the business. So I used to live in Augusta, Georgia when I was stationed in the military. And Augusta, Georgia is known for maybe four things. The birthplace of James Brown, Fort Gordon, Army Base, the Masters, and the Nike Peach Jam. And there's a guy that runs the facility where the Nike Peach Jam is by the name of Jeremy Junies, who's been around forever. And he used to take me with him all over the Carolinas so I could make some extra money. And I learned how to properly run an event. And that was the foundation that was set for me. Fast forward, I get out of the military, I moved to Dallas, and I feel like there is a need for a high-level event in Texas, in Dallas, because the next couple of years I noticed that the best players, not only in the state but in the country, were in Dallas. And so that first year, I jump-started it at Metro Academy of Math and Science, which I'm not even sure what it's called or even if it's still there now. I think it may be a parking lot for the Cowboys now because it's not too far from the Cowboy Stadium. It started there. A couple guys took a chance on me and participated in the event. The next year, I moved it to Duncanville High School, and it's been there since, outside of last year when I moved it to the American Airlines Center for the last 4 games. And then this year, I did a doubleheader at the American Airlines Center again.
Yeah, so talk about the event this weekend. We'll get to some of the other stuff you've done and some of the other stuff you're doing. Talk about the event this weekend. Who did you think played well? What were the teams in it? We're already getting some shout outs. We got DJ H5, Stacey Houston, giving shout out to Mr. Smith. We know he had his RJ Hampton showcase. So let's talk about the Thanksgiving event that you had, the teams that were in it, the performances. I know Ani was there as well, and we'll let you guys kind of toss it back and forth.
The first game was Lancaster versus John Paul, which was a very good game. You know, it was a lot of back and forth. Wade Taylor was Wade Taylor. You know, he had a really good game. Manny and Jalen Tyson, both of those guys, you know, they played really well from what I got to see. The thing about being an event operator is that sometimes you don't get a chance to watch a lot of the game, you know, so I didn't get a chance to see a lot of that game outside of maybe the last 3-4 minutes of it. But from what I saw and from what I was told, that it was a really, really good high level game, especially when you have 4 Division I players that have already committed. And, you know, a lot of people feel like the big kid for John Paul is going to go to a high major as well. So for a 6 o'clock game to have 5 Division I players, I think it really kind of kick-started the night off really good. I know Ani was there courtside, feet on wood, so he probably had a better seat and a better observation of that particular game.
Yeah, so you actually right on and hit the nail on the head on the guys that performed. Wade Taylor was, like you said, Wade Taylor, I think, produced 20 points. Got to the basket, finished. Jumper really wasn't on, but Wade just, you know, when open court, and just especially in transition, he's such a blur. He's going to get his, and defensively really intercepts passing lanes and getting steals and getting layups. I mean, Wade would just Wade. I mean, he's just going to be disruptive. He's going to know how to be productive on the offensive end. Elijah Huey got going some. That's the kid that signed to Western Kentucky. And going back, Wade is signed to Texas A&M. But going back to Elijah, just how to really score the basketball, show some mid-range game, defensively really committing more to that side. Did not ever really see that in the past, but, playing for Coach Farron, he's really starting to commit to the defensive side and, getting to the personal space of defender. So I did like that. For John Paul II, Manny Obaseki was he's just been really good the past week or two. Texas A&M signing, athletic, lefty, knows how to really dictate pace. Defensively can be very disruptive just with his length and his athleticism, with his positional size. So Manny was good. Manny was good. Maybe you could say that he was the best player, best performer in that game. Jalen Tyson, Texas Tech signee, when he gets going offensively, when he starts hitting shots, and I was firsthand for it. He's just hard to stop. He hit some clutch threes down the stretch. Cameron Corhan, that's the big fellow that Glenn was talking about for John Paul II. Big fellow with size, skill, can hit shots from the perimeter. He's starting to finish above the rim. It's just his coordination, overall just feel for the game has really improved. It was a good game. I mean, Lancaster was up in the fourth quarter. John Paul II goes into that little diamond half court, little 1-2-2 half court. Just was able to get steals, force quick shots, and then they came back and they secured the win at the end as they execute offensively. So those were the real standouts in that game. And Glenn was right. He hit nail on the head on the guys that did perform.
And then the nightcap, we had Duncanville played against Yipsy Prep. Yipsy, of course, is headlined by Imani Bates. They came into Dallas and, they took an L, and Duncanville really played well. They kind of warmed down, which is what Duncanville does. They kind of keep their pressure and they really locked in defensively. And, I think PV does a good job of saying, hey, I'm going to let this guy get his, but these other four guys that's on the court, they're not going to be able to do anything. And I think that was the difference in that particular game. And, we had a fairly good crowd considering, what we have to deal with, and I feel like everyone enjoyed the show. I feel like everyone felt safe, and it was just, it was some really high level basketball. And I think everybody got a chance to see Imani Bates up close. I think what ended up happening as well is that people on a bigger scale got to see what a lot of people have been seeing all season. And that's how Ron Holland has been playing. Yep. He's been doing that all season, but just this time it was on a very big stage and he held his own, and I think that people are starting to realize that, Duncanville just isn't a good Texas team. Duncanville is developing to become a national powerhouse. And it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really exciting for years to come, in the city of Dallas.
Yeah, absolutely. Touch on your point with Ronald Holland. To me, Ronald Holland had the best performance out of anybody that night, especially at the stage and against the opponent. He's been performing all year, and just for him to put 18 points and 16 rebounds, and I know he had a few blocked shots. I mean, that's fantastic for a sophomore. I mean, we're talking about a sophomore that's doing that against a team that's has a couple national level prospects. Have to know one player in the 22 class, and for him just to go on and perform, Ron was fantastic. I mean, he was fantastic. Like you said, Duncanville, just with their defensive pressure, it just wears on you. And Duncanville can go 10 guys, and they all provide real stable production. If that's not offensively, that's defensively. And then guys that were just hitting shots. You talk about C.J. Ford, who's a 2022, that was just making shots off the catch. You talk about Zerk Phelps, he started getting going a little bit in the first half as well. He started to create his own offense. You got Juan Reyna defensively was real physical, was disruptive, forcing guys into tough shots. And even though offensively, like his jumper wasn't falling, he was trying to get to the basket. He's a crafty finisher. Damon Nicholas was a beast, his size and just his strength and just his physicality on both ends was really showing, and that allowed him to make some plays. That's the Sam Houston assignee. Duncanville's just tough. Like I said earlier in the show, they defend, they get in your personal space, they rotate, they take charges, they rebound, they hold each other accountable. David Peavy's done a hell of a job, and he continues to do a hell of a job with his team. It's just tough for a team like Yipsy Prep or just any team in the country just to go against. And for Yipsy Prep, you talk about Imani Bates, who is number one player in the country right now for 2022. He's talented. A kid with his size and his shot making capabilities and, his athleticism and length, is unmatched. I think he still ended up with like 28 points, but it was a hard 28. It wasn't easy. And then they got the kid that's going to Michigan, Kobe Buffkin, who's a lefty guard, talented, uses his size, athleticism, and he's a really good shot maker, especially into the mid-range game. And they got a couple other guys like the big fella, Sean Phillips, who had a presence. He got in foul trouble, but he was a big fella that really just kind of took up space, was blocking shots and, carving space in the paint. So it was a really good matchup. It was fun. It was a really, really fun game.
Yeah, I had a blast as well, man. The only thing that was missing was Brian Burton, so.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be back soon. I'll be back soon, man. I look forward to it. Talk about, Glenn, how you're able to get some of these guys in. I mean, last year you had Jalen Green. The list goes on. Talk about some of the guys you've had in the past. Talk about Imani Bates a little bit more. I know Ani gave his take on it. Talk about your take on him, and then how are you able to get these guys in? I mean, let's not act like that's the easiest thing to do. There's plenty of people that want to put on events and have big time, prime time matchups. How are you able to pull this off year in and year out?
I think I'm able to pull it off because when you do good business, it travels. And when you do what you say you're going to do, and when you don't overpromise and underdeliver, and when you have a good product, it kind of speaks for itself, and being in Dallas is a very attractive place too, because anybody can get here, essentially nonstop on a nonstop flight with Southwest and American being headquartered here. And we are, producing a lot of high quality basketball players as well as teams. So people want to come here, and match up against our good players. I think I'm able to get some of these better teams, because of the relationships that I've developed, around the country. I don't really do a lot of, the extra stuff. I don't get caught up in a lot of the gossip or the drama. I kind of stay away from that. I just kind of stay in my own little lane. I don't try to get in everybody's business or anything like that. And I think people respect that, because you don't really just hear my name in any BS, unlike that. And I think that's a plus, and the fact that it's grown to where it has become a stage for players that are on the brink of becoming that guy, and it's fun. The environment is really, really cool. It's a great basketball environment. It's made the transition from being a basketball event to an experience, because in the past 5 to 6 years, you can come watch somebody play, and then in 12 months, 24 months max, you can be seeing that exact same kid walking across the stage, getting drafted, and I think that's part of it too, and some of the players that have came through, De'Aaron Fox, Marcus Smart, Julius Randle, Emmanuel Mudiay, Jaylen Brown when he was a freshman. Trae Young. Man, who else? I'm missing a bunch of people.
RJ Hampton. Yeah, you got
RJ Hampton, Jemias Ramsey, Tyrese Maxey. Next year you'll be able to say Cade Cunningham. Who else we got? It's been some guys that have came through there. Jalen Green. I was kind of privy to a lot of stuff that was going to happen with him early on. So which was big for him. Last year when he, did what he did. at the AAC and the night before against Lancaster. You know, he had 2 really good games. You know that, and then the year before, what he did when he played against Sam Williamson on one night, and when him and RJ Hampton locked horns the next night. You know, so it's been some guys that have came through before they were the guy or on the cusp of it. You know, so I really take pride in trying to find that next guy, give the people in Texas somebody who they want to see, who's exciting, you know, so we can always get our fix. With Umana, you know, he bad, man. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe it. You know, don't get me wrong. You know, a lot of people talk about him based off of what the forecasted end product may be. But I don't think people just realize you don't really see a lot of 6'9", 6'10" guys doing the stuff with the rock that he's doing.
Absolutely.
You know, and he's shooting that thing. He handling that thing, you know, and then, you know, he's out guarding guards, you know, like sitting down, you know, like he probably should do that a little bit more or be a little bit more aggressive at times, you know, but on the offensive side, you know, he's a problem, you know, and he's tall enough to get that off, you know, over some guys. And if a big guy comes out there to try to guard him, you know, the way he handles it, you know, he's blowing past some guys. You know, I know people try to compare him to KD and this, that, and the other, you know, which may be the long-term look. I mean, but if people have been around the game, if they remember DeMar Johnson when he was in high school, you know, that's kind of like how he's looking right now. You know,
that's a good comparison.
Which isn't a slouch. You know, don't judge about what he did, you know, after high school. But in high school, DeMar Johnson was a fool. You know what I'm saying? He was getting it.
And DeMar Johnson, he played for the Hawks, didn't he?
Yes,
he did. Go play for the Hawks. Played at Cincinnati. Was like you said. It's not about where he was necessarily at the end of his career, but at that time, what was he doing? Another one to think about that may not be exactly the same, but just comes to mind from just the clips I've seen on him is some Lamar Odom in high school. Maybe not as much ball handling, but just kind of that versatile forward who kind of does a little bit of everything. Also comes to mind when you talk about somebody in their prep years, not necessarily the Lakers Lamar Odom, but the prep version of Lamar had some similarities.
No doubt. I can definitely see that, you know, with the way they're built. You know, I think, like you mentioned, Lamar was more of a playmaker.
Yep.
As far as getting people involved, and Umana is more of a, I'm gonna go get it.
I'm
gonna go get this bucket on you real quick and talk to you while I'm doing it.
Yeah, talk about some of the guys. Again, you've mentioned some of the people you've had that have been at the event. What's some of the best performances? We know the names, right? You mentioned Maxey, you mentioned RJ, you mentioned Jemias, you mentioned Trey Young. You can go down the list, Marcus Smart. Talk about some of the actual performances at the events that you've had, and also just talk about some of the guys that maybe weren't as big of a name before your event, but then once they hit that stage and they performed, they kind of took themselves to a whole nother stratosphere.
Some of the biggest performances, without question, Stevie Clark had a hell of a run. Like, he was coming to Dallas, like, lighting it up. You know, he was like Trey Young before Trey Young. You know, when he was at Douglas, like, he was going at it. You know, he was putting up some points when he came to Dallas. You know, and he's one of my favorites. You know, of all time.
For sure.
Jalen Green, he had a couple good performances. You know, one of them being that step back jumper that he hit against Rockwall. I knew he was special then with the separation that he got when he did that step back to knock down that game winner. The battle between Jalen and RJ that next night, you know, that kind of is up there as well. The 60 points that Javonte Smart scored, you know, that's up there. You know, who else has some?
Yeah, Trey Young, that game where they play Richland.
Yes. Trey Young had a hell of a run. Andrew Jones, twofold. You asked about a player.
Andrew Jones is probably one of those guys.
Yeah, twofold with Andrew Jones. When you mentioned a player that was kind of known, but then he had his coming out party. That Friday night, him and De'Aaron Fox went at it.
Yep.
I think he finished with like 34, 36, and then the next day, him and Trey Young went at it. And I think that weekend is what propelled him into the McDonald game as well as the Jordan Brand game that weekend, because he got his rocks off. I think that was a really, really big thing for him.
Yeah, Andrew Jones, a guy who didn't play, wasn't originally like major Nike, Adidas circuit kind of guy, and had a monster summer that summer. And coming off that summer, that was what everybody kind of wanted to see, is how are we going to do against the best in these matchups in this game. And like you said, I think that did propel him. I know guys like Eric Bossi were there watching courtside, and a lot of national scouts and eyes and evaluators. I think that did put him on that next level as far as being one of the best players to be in a McDonald's game, be in a Jordan game from playing on that stage.
Oh yeah, without question. And that's part of the reason why I do the event, is to give guys that are right there on the cusp of making the game or on the cusp of being that breakout star, to give them the stage, to show all these local, regional, and national media guys, what we already know. That was part of the reason why I matched St. Mark's and Harrison Ingram up against Prolific Prep at the American Airlines Center, because I wanted everyone to see what Harrison Ingram could do, because at the time I felt like he was one of the most underappreciated top 15 guys in the country that nobody ever really talked about. And I think, once people saw him hold his own, and if not get the better of Jalen Green that night, that the conversation and the narrative in regards to Harrison really, really changed.
Right. No, I think you're right about that too. And love the fact that that's part of the intention. I'm sure there's some strategy that goes into the matchups. Again, we're kind of getting behind the scenes and to how you make the plays that you're able to make. But how are you able to, how do you decide who should match up against who? Is it a position thing? Is it a ranking thing? Is it just kind of a feel? Do people make requests we want to go at this guy? We're only coming if we can play against such and such. Is that a part of the formula for making the event what it is? And then also, after you answer that one, if you can just piggyback on the American Airlines monster record-breaking event last year and how you pulled that off.
So what happens is that I normally give coaches 2 to 3 teams that I would like for them to play, and I have them rank them on who they would like to play the most to least. And a lot of stuff is based on whether it's a good team versus a good team, or if it's a matchup that people want to see. Like, for example, like with RJ and Jalen Green, that was more of a, 2 of the top guards in that class. People wanted to see them match up against each other. Whereas a couple years back, when Flower Mound Marcus and Houston Yates both were running stuff in their respective classes, that was more along the lines of this really good team versus this really good team. So it's a case-by-case basis. And it's a couple other factors that come into that, but I don't want to give away my secret sauce on the air, because I got to be able to keep.
You can't give away the sauce. Can't give away the sauce.
Yeah, I got to still be able to keep my foot on people's throats. You know what I'm saying? As far as the AAC, that was something that was really, really, really interesting, stressful, but exciting as well.
No doubt.
Because I changed the venue 8 days before the actual event.
Yep.
And
so the original venue, I believe, was Ellis Davis Fieldhouse. Is that correct?
No, the original venue was Duncanville High School.
Okay.
And then that sold out in about 48 minutes. And then I was, thinking about it. And then somebody who I really respect was like, hey man, you gotta move the needle some. And then I thought about it and I was like, so what's the end game? Is this going to be just another event? Am I going to be just another event operator, or am I going to continue to be innovative and push the envelope?
Right.
So a meeting was scheduled with the AAC. They welcomed me with open arms. They really, really made it work for me. And next thing you know, we got 12,000 and some change in the American Airlines Center, and we got it cracking.
Yeah, so go back to that process, which is amazing still that you pulled it off the way you did, and seeing the pictures. I wasn't able to be there live. We were playing at the time, coaching collegiately, but looking at the pictures, jam-packed house. Obviously, you had D Wade's son, LeBron's son there. That's part of the attraction, but not just to mention the other names that you had of just the Texas players as well. But how would the numbers for Duncanville High School couldn't have been 12,000? So you said you sold out in 48 minutes, and then you moved it to American Airlines. Did you project that it would be that kind of a outcome? What were the numbers like before when it was just Duncanville, and then obviously it grew to 12,000? And I'm sure you probably couldn't have imagined that. What was that little 8-day process like?
It was exciting. My thing with that was that when I moved it, I had a bigger goal and a bigger mindset in play. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about this or that. For me, it was a long ball play. For me, it was about, okay, I'm going to do this, and then this is going to set up some stuff that I'm going to do next year and some stuff that I'm planning 2 years from now. So for me, it wasn't about the right now. It was about, the 2 to 3 year play down the road to set stuff up that I ultimately want to do, and it worked, because for me now, emails get responded to a little bit quicker. Phone calls that used to go on deaf ears are now being responded to.
Right.
And then now doors that normally wasn't open are open for me, or I'm called to walk through the door. And I wanted to show people that look like you, me, and Ani that we can do stuff like that.
Yep.
Because it was so many times that people came up to me that when they see Glenn Smith in the paper or online, Glenn Smith sounds like a white boy name, and they just automatically assume, that it's a white guy doing it. But then once people found out that once people that aren't necessarily in the grassroots or basketball community start finding out, hey, it's a brother doing this, what I'm saying? Now it's like, okay, now we all got to go, and I think, don't get me wrong, the games were a big part of it, but I think a lot of people wanted to come just because they know where the event started, and they was happy to see somebody that looks like them, that's been in the trenches with them, make it to the AAC. That's the reason why a lot of people saw people that they hadn't seen in a long time, because I reached out to them and said, hey, hey, we in the AAC, not me, we in the AAC, and they ain't opened this door up for us. So we all gonna kick it. We all gonna party. You know what I'm saying? So I had a lot of guys that people probably hadn't even seen that aren't even in basketball no more come out, because I invited them, because I wanted them to, be part of it, because they don't let people that look like us in there that often.
Right. And just bringing the community together. I think you've done an unbelievable job, a record-breaking job. Obviously, we just talked about, but just continuing to figure out ways to not only be innovative, but bring the community together, because that's what it's about. We kind of have that slogan, if you're from Dallas or you're a part of that community, the DFW versus everybody kind of mentality, but bringing everybody together, because sometimes it gets competitive within the city. We all know that. And I think your events do just such a great job of reminding everybody of the power of being collected, man. But so we'll let you have a couple last words that you have, anything you want to share that's upcoming, or anything people can do to plug into what you're doing, or just follow, or any words of wisdom you got for us, man. We'll just leave you some last words and let you kind of get on with the rest of your day. Thanks so much for coming on too, G.
Man, first of all, I really appreciate you guys having me. It's always good to chop it up with some good brothers. What I would say is, we're one, go to hoopfestbasketball.com and get you some merch.
Yep.
Two, I have an event next Saturday, December the 12th at the Fertitta Center. I got some really exciting news that's going to come out in regards to that in the next 24 hours.
Okay, good.
Which I'm really excited about in regards to the holiday.
You don't have to break it here. You can if you want, though. You know that, right?
It would be premature.
I got it. I'm just giving you a hard time. I know you're calculating what you're doing, man.
It'll be premature. So I gotta cross a couple T's and dot some I's first. So that's really going to be huge. I'm really excited about being in the Fertitta Center. I'm really excited about being in Houston. I think it's really going to be exciting. It's going to be two really, really good games. Umana's coming to Houston, so, he feels like he didn't give his best performance in Dallas. So I'm excited to see, what he brings to the table in Houston.
I like it.
What I would say to people is don't let people who can't see your dream discourage you from doing what you want to do.
Wow.
And don't let people who ain't doing shit, who aren't doing anything, prevent you from doing it. And by that, what I mean is always going to be people. If I told people that, hey, I'm going to grow this event to the American Airlines Center, or I plan to grow it, the crab in the bucket syndrome is going to kick in and everything else is going to kick in. Oh man, you can't do that. They ain't letting us up in there, or this, that, and the other. But then we're here now. Right. Don't be afraid to dream in color. Make those dreams and goals become reality, and watch out for people that only want to come around when the limo is taking off, but don't want to catch the bus with you. And stay away from people, because we have this thing where people only want to see you stay at the level that they met you at.
Right.
They don't appreciate growth. Like they can say that, hey, support Black businesses, this, that, and the other, but you actually have to live that, and don't just be hashtagging it, because a lot of times if people meet you as a bellhop, they don't want to see you go to school to get your degree and ultimately become the manager or the GM of the hotel.
Right.
And just don't let people like that discourage you from bettering yourself, because in this game of life, you only got one run. So you gotta play the hell out of your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are powerful words right there, man. We're gonna have to make sure we definitely chop that up, splice it, share it. More people need to hear that. More people need to hear that, and that's exactly how you got to the place that you are. Some that don't know, you were doing some things kind of similar to what Ani's doing as a scout, and before that, you weren't even in necessarily the basketball realm in Texas. You came, as you said, your story earlier. So to kind of evolve the way you have from a guy who was doing some things out in Georgia. With the Peach Jam, just kind of running around, kind of figuring it out behind the scenes, to a guy who now has the best high school scholastic event as far as matchups and as far as how big it is, arguably in the country. So salute to you, G. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It means a lot to us to have you on today. And let Ani kind of say some last words too, and be safe, and look forward to having you back, and look forward to the breaking news that's coming in the next 24 hours too.
Hey, man, I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all have a good one.
Okay, dude. Yeah, that's Glenn Smith. Man, that was big time. Loved having him on. We're going to shift right next to talking of Houston and the Fertitta Center. We'll talk to Jeffrey Day, who's a part of the RCS sports team with Jim Hicks and Doug Jones. They had a Thanksgiving event as well. We're going to bring him straight in the studio and let him and Ani talk about the event out there in Houston. G Day, what up, homie? How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, fellas, man? How y'all doing?
Good, man. I appreciate you taking a break. I know you at in the schoolhouse making make that happen. So I know Ani's got to run in about 15, so I'm gonna let you guys kind of go toe to toe and talk about.
I gotta put my coach's hat on, coach. I gotta put my coach's hat on.
You gotta put it on. Let's go.
Yeah, what up, G?
Hey, what's going on?
So I want you to talk first. Just talk about like 5 players that really stood out to you from Hoops Giving. Hoops Giving's it's kind of become more of a tradition for me. Just to go down to Houston the day before Thanksgiving. I really enjoy,
Yes,
seeing Jim Higgs, seeing you guys, catching town down to Houston, and it was a really good event. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on who you feel like your top 5 performers were. You don't have to be, 1 through 5, but just 5 guys that really stood out to you.
Okay. My top 5 performers from the event to me was Doc Morador, 6'11" kid from Premier Academy. Really solid wings. I'm really interested to see what his wingspan is. I know it has to be like 7'3". He has really good timing also for to be able to block shots. He runs the floor well. He's not clumsy. He plays his position really well. Can play with the back to the basket. Can face up play perimeter, short corner as well as high post position. Pretty much kind of do it all pretty much for them. He finished with like 8 points, I do believe, but like 17 rebounds, 7 block shots. He had like 8 pass deflections, and so he was one of the players who really stood out. He's a class of 2022 prospect. Also, who stood out to me was Zion Pipkin, freshman out of the Woodlands Christian Academy, 2024. He just was able to score the ball really well. Talking about one dribble pull-ups, dribble step backs from behind the perimeter, catch and shoot on the move. Show really good triple threat with the basketball as well. Was able to get to his spots on the floor. You could tell that with him working with guys like Ben Perkins, teaching them how to get to your spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Ben.
Yeah, shout out to Ben, man. Getting to his spots, getting his shots off, as well as even kind of, facilitating and getting everybody else involved in the game. Noah Khan was another kid that kind of stood out to me. Noah's been playing really solid, just doing everything, not just scoring, but rebounding the basketball. He's showing a little bit more that he can facilitate the ball a little bit better, getting a lot of good paint touches, finding his guys in the corners. Had a couple of reverse pivot passes once he got into the paint, reverse pivot back out to the top of the key. Just you kind of showing his game that yes, I can facilitate the basketball. Kind of trying to put himself in a situation to be more recruitable in a sense. Another kid that stood out was Josh Farmer. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but he did a lot of the intangibles. Things that you don't really get to see a lot high school basketball, like setting off-ball screens. Like he did a really good job of setting off-ball screens and getting other guys
he wasn't doing in the past.
Yeah. Setting off-ball screens, getting other guys open to get easy looks. Rebounded really well, had 17 rebounds as well, a couple of block shots. He played really solid on ball as well, even guarding smaller guards. And so, those 4, if I had to pick one more player, just to make it 5, I would go with Brian Miles from Legacy School of Sports and Science. He played really well. He was pretty much a junkyard dog around the rim, swallowing up rebounds offensively, getting easy putbacks. He showed his versatility defensively by being able to guard. O.D. White had a couple of smaller guards, and he was able to kind of check him for the most part. Not saying that he locked anyone up, but just seeing him do that and not just guarding people in the post all the time was really refreshing to see, and that he was able to still compete even at that fast pace. And he finished the game with like 18 points, 7 rebounds, 2 or 3 block shots. So those are 5 players who kind of stood out to me at the Hoops Giving Classic down here in Houston, ran by RCS Sports.
And that's a good 5. And with my 5, it's fairly similar to yours. And I'm gonna go 1 through 5. I'm gonna kind of make it interesting.
Okay.
Number 1, I got David Guy.
David was tough. Yeah,
for Premier Academy, 2022 kid. Had 27 points, 8 rebounds against Concordia. That was a big win for Premier. Just a versatile 4, like when you stretch 4, like he can really like a 4-3 tweener type, but he just gets a lot done. Skill for a kid his size, can shoot it. He knows how to use his size and finish. He has good feel for it. And I've said it before in the show today. Just kids that just understand what the bread and butter is and where they need to get their bucket. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to prove to you he can really shoot it. He's gonna shoot the ball when he's open or when it's the right shot. He just knows, hey, I got to get inside because we need a bucket because this team's on a run. fun. So guys that feel, especially, and I'm just gonna say it, especially like foreign kids really kind of understand that coming to America.
They do.
And really understanding that right away, that really stood out to me. So David, guys, number one. Number two, this is very interesting. It's between Zion Pimpkins and Doc. And I'm gonna go Zion.
Okay.
All right. Like he gets the little nudge past Doc. 2024 player, big game against Houston Christian, right? You got the Woodland Christian, and then you got Houston Christian, right? And I know that was a rivalry game. I mean, they won that game. I guess last year they played, and I forgot who won, and it was heated, but it was a really good game. And for a freshman to come out there and really make shots and shoot it from deep, I mean, he was shooting way deep, and even his misses look good. I mean, I didn't know he was that good of a jump shooter. Like his jump shooting is just like, wow. And the funny thing about it was the show, we had the show last week prior to me going into the gym. I said, I want to know what he can do, what he could potentially do great. And his jump shooting, I didn't know. And then I went in, I was like, oh, this kid could be really, really good as a jump shooter. He's a kid, I'm telling you, kind of, I don't want to say under the radar because he's a freshman. He's young. I mean, you don't really call no freshman under the radar. But he's a kid in that freshman class. People talk about some other kids. He's up there as far as
he is.
Players, and even as a prospect, he looks like he's going to still grow some more. Just his shot making, he's able to put on the floor, create space off the bounce. I mean, I like him. I like him a lot. I think I have him too because he was entertaining. He was more entertaining than
he was.
And so just for me, I really did enjoy that. Doc, I have at 3. He had a 16 rebound game, just like you said. His long wingspan is over 7 feet. Block shots, rebound. Another kid that even though he wasn't really scoring the basketball like that, he was impacting the game in other ways, and he was putting a lot of effort. That's important, especially with bigs. I mean, it's so crazy with bigs when they play with more effort, they have better basketball performances. And that's what I felt like I really saw with Doc. And, Premier went 2-0. They picked up a game real quick. They played a back-to-back and went 2. So, and that was another reason why I could have put Doc too. But, and you put him too, right? You have supportive facts. So we got so that's 4. At 4, so this is, to me, it's you got Brian Miles, a really legacy, signed to Prairie View. Kind of that junkyard doggish type forward that has some skill to him. I mean, he can kind of mix up in his shots, but his back-to-basket game is very sound, and he's physical. He embraces contacts. He's going to rebound. He's going to talk his stuff, to the opposing team. I mean, he just mean and physical. Does anything just generally just completely pop out to you, like his athleticism or anything? No, but he just gets so much done. He gets so much done, and he's like he's a kid that if he makes legacy go not just as an offensive engine, but just as a high motor, effort, energy guy. So I really do like Brian Miles at 5. You got a couple guys that can kind of take that spot. I'm gonna go with Josh Farmer. Sharpstown had 5 guys.
Yeah, 5 players.
There's nobody on the bench. Walking in that back gym, first off, the lights are real dim. I seen it right, or my God, And Josh, he's a kid I mentioned earlier in the show. Long, athletic. He's starting to make winning basketball plays, and he's just becoming a better teammate. And that's a big thing. I never doubted his natural ability and talent, but just the fact that he's being a better teammate. He's trying to actually win basketball games. That's huge.
It is.
That's maturity.
Yeah.
And for him, and for him to mature, that gets to the sign of you wonder if he's really going. You think he's going to figure it out eventually. Yeah. So, want to give you some overall thoughts. Want to talk about teams a little bit. What was your overall thoughts on some of the teams and some of the matchups? Just you can kind of you can go an array of ways with this, but I just want to get your general thoughts on just.
The Westbury Christian versus Stafford matchup to me was interesting to start off the day. You know, Stafford, Westbury Christian going to Tap State for 4A, and then Stafford went to State 4A as well. And so that was a really solid matchup. Stafford brings back, if they lost one kid from their team, so they bring every single kid back. A lot of guys were just fresh off the football field for them as well. And so, you know, they still kind of trying to gel together, but just seeing the way that Chris Felix was able to control the game, just to see he's different, playing with more confidence than he has in the past. So just being able to see that aspect was made for a really intriguing matchup. And then the Sharpstown Goose Creek Memorial, Goose Creek, really young squad, still putting it together. You know, they're 5-1 right now. This to start the season. Basically, the team is full of juniors, and everybody's back from last year as starters. Yeah. But Sharpstown, like you said, they had walked in the gym with 5 guys. Came to compete. I was really glad to see that coach was able to keep them from getting in foul trouble. That was really, you know, interesting to see. Just speaking from an AAU sense, if you ever play against a team with that only walks in the gym with 5 or 6 dudes, you're usually trying to, you know, attack the rim a lot, foul them out really quickly. But this wasn't the case. Coach made the proper adjustments. He kind of let some things slide at the rim, and by him doing that, it was a lot of missed layups. Into some transition buckets. Yeah. So that was really smart of them. That was another good matchup. I think it shocked a lot of people, even people who didn't come to the game when they seen that final score, with it being so close. Everybody was just kind of like, wow. Premier Academy versus Concordia Lutheran, big win for Premier. Right there, Concordia has R.J. King signed to Boise State University. You know, he played okay, wasn't necessarily his best game, but he had a solid outing. Trey Miller, the junior point guard, really he led the way for Concordia Lutheran as in the scoring and as well as assists. He's a really tough on-ball defender, but it just wasn't enough for Premier. Premier has a lot of guys. You have Will Young, Ethan Yancey, you have Doc over there. You have David, and then Sam Curtis. But just the inside presence of David alone defensively, I think that really altered a lot in that Concordia Luther game. Of Doc inside defensively altered a lot, as well as David's offensive prowess in that game. I just think people wasn't expecting to see that dynamic from them. You know, everybody kind of like, oh, they're not together. They're just gonna come in. They're just gonna run. They're gonna do this, but they really look like a unit and played as one. And so that was another matchup that intrigued. And like you said, they turned right around, played a back-to-back game against St. John's. Still had the same energy, same effort, but this time other guys stepped up. As Ethan Yancey, he poured out 33 points in that game. He really stepped up big time for that game in St. John's. And then just the Houston Christian, Woodlands Christian, like you said, big rivalry. Last year, Houston Christian was able to pull that game out. This year, the Woodlands Christian was able to pull it out. And so the rivalry continues to live on. A big game from freshman Zion Pipkin. He really played well. He really did solid. He kind of showing a little separation from, like you said, other freshmen, and showing that I should be up there in that conversation as well. Austin Benini, he played solid. Chance got in there and mixed things up on the boards. Really good defensively, giving up his body to take charges. He always gets after the 50-50 balls. You know, he just does all the little intangibles. But the Woodlands Christian just really played really good basketball. Like I said, Noah Khan was good. Elijah Bernstein was good on attacking the basketball. Then the final game, the O.D. Wyatt versus Legacy School of Sports Science. O.D. Wyatt, the guard, I can't remember, is Jacoby, I think.
Jacoby Lewis.
Yeah, Jacoby, tough, man, tough. That was my first time seeing the kid. I really like this game. Tough guard, really good IQ. Controls the tempo. He didn't care who was guarding him. He was able to take his man. He knew when to speed up, when to slow it down. So just as a point guard perspective, I really love that about him. Just Legacy just had a little bit too much firepower for them at the end of the day. And so those are my matchups and what really stood out to me from the Hoopsgiving Classic.
Yeah, if people didn't know you, G, they may not know you. You could talk the game like this, man. What's going on here today? You showing people you got some skills.
Huh? What was that?
I said if people didn't really know you, they may not know you know the game like this. You really showing them you got some skills. I see.
Oh yeah, well I try to keep up with Ani, man. I try to stay in the gym, man.
Like I know Ani's got a role. He's got to put on his coach hat in a minute because he has he has one of the better teams.
I would, you know, I put it on.
yeah. King Ani, the prince. So I let him close out with you, G-Day, and then I'll take over after.
No, for sure, G. I'll be back in Houston on December 12th. I imagine you.
Man, I see you, man. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, I'll see you out there, but definitely, you know, I appreciate you guys, you know, running the hoops given, and it was a really good event, a lot of talent, and it just let me get a better feel just for everybody and just kind of see where kids are kind of maturing and growing and what direction they're going to. The guys that have signed and they haven't signed, so definitely looking forward to being in Houston again. I think it's with Shadow Creek and Legacy. They play the first game, and then you got Yipsy Prep and Hightower, so you get to see Monty Bates and the Bryce Griggs, who I know are actually fairly close. They're close to each other for a long time, and then you know Tyrone Baker and then Kobe Buffkin, and they got another kid out there, Yipsy Prep and Sean Phillips. So it's just really fun. I like coming to Houston. I think the talent there, you know, is really, really coming along. From the even in 21 class, you start to see some guys come up. I know about AJ Ferguson, you know, and those guys. And then you talk about in 22 class, PJ Haggerty's averaging like 37 points a game.
Yeah.
So I know I need to go catch a game when he's really, really playing, when he's playing a real strong team with really strong with him. But 23 class, I've talked about in the previous shows about how strong that is. So in the 24 class, Zion Pimpkins, you know, he kind of just really impressed me there.
Yeah.
Definitely love the talent that's out in Houston. I just kind of want you to share your thoughts on just talent in Houston.
I feel the talent in Houston is really good right now. You know, I'm not a Houstonian,
right.
But you know, a lot of people, they kind of still feel the talent is down. I feel it's at a good place. It's just more of us. It's more about us pushing the kids, backing the kids, talking with the coaches. And then at the end of the day, it's the coach's decisions, not our decisions.
Right.
But we have to push them out there, and we have to back them regardless how people may feel about them or not. And that's our job. That's what we need to do. That's what I'm doing. But that's what everybody else also, you know, kind of. We just need to step up as a community as a whole and push the kids, man. The narrative is there. Talent is really solid, as you were saying. You know, people are growing. A lot of 2021 kids are turning in from players to prospects. So. It'll be interesting to see where it goes, man.
Absolutely.
Well, Ani, I know you got to get your coach hat on, man. We'll let G-Day stay on for a few more minutes before he has to put his teacher hat back on.
Yeah.
Keep the show rolling just for 5 more minutes or so. But Ani, appreciate you as always, man. We'll catch Ani next week, same time, same place. He'll have some more great insights for us. His Wi-Fi won't be tripping at the beginning of the show, just a hard time. But no, appreciate it. Ani did an awesome job, man.
All right, no, appreciate you guys. I'll see y'all soon. I'll see y'all next week.
G-Day, so tell us a little bit about the G-Day story. We obviously see the talent. We obviously see your love for the game. We see your passion and your ability to break down basketball and be detailed. You say you're not a Houstonian, so I'm assuming you're a transplant. So tell us a little bit about the quick story for you and how you got hooked up with Jim Hicks and RCS Sports and how you kind of started watching and evaluating games and are to the level that you are now, where you're, again, collaborating with somebody like Jim Hicks and what he's done and just decade after decade. He was one of the first guests. He was the first guest on our show here. We got a podcast coming out with him on All Access Coaches Corner next week. We'll talk about that'll be really a must listen for everybody in the state of Texas because it just tells a story. But tell us your story a little bit before we let you run and go back to school. We got a quick comment. Stacey Houston said Houston needs that community unity.
I agree with him 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
We do, man. I'm trying to, but I can't do it by myself, man.
Yeah, it takes the village. But tell us your story real quick before you roll. I know you got to get back to the schoolhouse.
Oh, okay. I'm a Midwest kid from Illinois, and so I was a football kid, really. I mean, I could play basketball. I played varsity basketball, but I was better on the football field. Had a football scholarship. This is me learning. You know, as a young man, 18 years old, I break my leg like the third day of practice. So the following year, I lose my scholarship because leg didn't properly heal, so I wasn't being able to get back on the field. They wasn't too sure about how rehab. This is all in 2002 at the time. Wasn't too sure about how rehabbing was going to take place. But while my leg was broke, I spent a lot of time, breaking down stats, breaking down videos. I got hooked up with a couple of kids who played on the basketball team at Illinois State University, a mid-major school for football. Back then it was called D1 AA. Now it's football, FCS, and then FBS. So it's a FCS school. And so, got hooked up with a couple of basketball kids. And then, they kind of introduced me to a couple of like the video coordinators at ISU, and kind of just went through school being a video coordinator. Not getting paid for it, but just learning how, break down film, what to watch for, learning tendencies of different players or different kids, and then introduced as well to synergy and all that other stuff, and that even made it even more easier for me. And then my son was coming up, so then I got on the AAU scene. Had a really solid program when he was 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Then went over to the Nike side of things for 1 year, and then 9th grade year, and then we ended up moving down to Houston. Was moving because we was just tired of the climate, tired of the snow all the time, tired of being cold. Wanted to be somewhere warm, so we ended up in Houston. The first thing I did was I researched, just the whole basketball scene, and RCS came up, so I contacted Jim Hicks. At that time, I had a son who was still in high school, so he was just like, "Well, you can't work for me while your son's in school," and he just like, "I'll be watching you, see what you do." And so I just kept my ball so hard, name of the scouting service that I had at the time. I just kept that rolling, where I do videos, I analyze the video, I break down film for parents as well as college coaches. I even work with the youth and show them how to break down your own game film, what to look for, the mistakes that you made, how to correct those mistakes, stuff like that. And just from there, just continue to grow in the Houston community. More people started, trusting me. At first it was, who is this guy? You think he could just come in and take over? I wasn't trying to take anything over. I just was trying to work with as many people as possible.
Right.
And so that's just my backstory, man. I got into it because I broke my leg, pretty much.
Yeah. And the gifts came out natural, man. You're natural at it. The players definitely have an appreciation for what you do. And obviously guys like Jim Hicks, Ani, you've earned respect of, the younger guys that are in this thing and the older guys. And like I said, no more than anything else, to putting in the work, man. Putting in the work, being genuine, being sincere. I didn't get a chance to know you great. I'm getting to know you better. But even as a college coach, reaching out, the good thing about Texas and the guys that are there, always making themselves available. So many guys with pure intentions, like you said, is just really try to help kids and try to help get the name out. And the more guys continue to have that approach, the better for the state, man. So I salute what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man.
I know you're just getting started. I'm glad you're with RCS. I think that's a tremendous move for you, because it just helps people know, like, okay, this guy is legit. He's not only doing it on his own. He not only has this ability, but similar to what Ani's done with Alan Branch, just kind of getting with that OG and letting them kind of take you under the wing and learn some of the tricks of the game and all that, and then put it with your bag. And as these guys continue to, like a fine wine, get better with time. But there's going to come a time where, those guys are going to probably pick up something else or sit down somewhere a little more.
Yeah.
So they need guys like you who are hustling the streets to be able to be the next wave and the next generation. Just like the coaches, at some point in time, Coach K is going to sit down and somebody else is going to be at Duke. We don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, we don't know, man.
Somebody's going to be there, just like with a lot of these programs. So same thing with what you're doing, man. Salute to you. Thanks for coming on. We know you'll be back at some point. So
whenever you need me, man, just let me know. I always make time, man. And that's just who I am as a person, though, man. I'm always willing to make time to speak or talk or help anybody, man. So just whenever you need me, let me know.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thanks so much. Be safe. Enjoy the game this week, and we'll definitely be in touch and look forward to having you back soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Okay, G. Well, here we go, wrapping up. Awesome show today. Had some great guests again. Jeffrey Day, from RCS Sports, covering the city of Houston, doing a great job, and is just one of those guys that's going to continue to make a name for himself, as Doug Jones has, as Ani has. That's kind of the cool part about the state of Texas, is that so many players and so much to cover. There's so many great guys that are making themselves available, living in the gym, putting in the grunt work, especially during this pandemic when we need college coaches need to be able to rely on other people's eyes and film more to be able to help these kids and to help the college coaches to know what these kids are able to do. And then for those guys that help the kids to be able to connect the dots and just have somebody to represent who they are and what they're able to get done. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. We got another comment from my main man, Stacey Houston. Another great show today. Thank you, Stacey. Got some good stuff coming out from Stacey Houston. I don't even know if he knows this if we talk, but you can hear it live here. We have his podcast coming out next week that he recorded with All Access Coaches Corner. Can't wait for you guys to hear that. He is bringing some heat, letting you know a little bit of behind the curtains to who he is and all the great things he's doing. He was on last week on this show talking about the RJ Hampton Showcase. But in that podcast, you can find that on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whether it's Apple, Spotify. You will also be able to watch it on YouTube and on our YouTube page at All Access Network. But please subscribe to both. But Stacey's just going to kind of break down some things of how he's gotten to where he is and who he is. And maybe sometimes people get misinterpreted and misunderstood, and can't wait for you guys to get to know him. We've already dropped our first podcast. Texas Tech assistant Uric Malagy was our first. Jason Hart, number one assistant in the Pac-12, voted by his peers. Associate head coach at USC drops today, this afternoon, in just a little bit. That'll be out. And, we'll just keep doing our best to keep bringing you some content, not only with these shows, but also with the podcast with the All Access Coaches Corner. And then on Sunday, we come out with Dwayne Broussard from TCU. So we got a Texas coach representing on the front end and the back end of this week. So looking forward to so much. Again, thank you for all tuning in and for all showing love. And we just look forward to continuing to cover the state and continue to grow what we're doing here. And thanks so much for the support. And, we just hope everyone stays safe. Continue to watch the college basketball level too. We're excited about that, and college football, and just continue to stay safe and tell people you love them. I'm going to continue to say that. We don't know what tomorrow may bring, so definitely tell people you love them. Put your arm around them, hug them, send them a text, whatever you need to do in this day and age. Just make sure that the people you have in your life that you appreciate, that they feel appreciated and feel loved. So thanks so much. Be great, be grateful, and we'll see you next week.